In my last video, I referenced a Linkin Park song called "In the Sky of a Million Lights," and then I talked about a verse in it that said, "In the sky of a million stars, who cares if one goes out," or something to that effect. Well, recently in Orlando, there was a man on a bridge. This is a true story. There was a man on a bridge who was going to kill himself, and a young woman stopped, went up and talked to him, and said, "I've been where you're at. I know what you're feeling." And, this song really helped me in my time of distress. And she played that song. And the verse in the song that really touched me says, in the sky of a million lights, who cares if one goes out? Well, I do. That's the verse. And the guy cried and hugged her, and he was thankful that someone cared. And in that spirit, that's how we should evangelize. We don't want to be combative when someone attacks our faith. We want to let them know we care about them. We care about their soul, and we care about their life in the present and their life eternally. And that's why we practice apologetics. That's why we evangelize. Not to be combative, not to prove we're right. And like I always say, if you get mad, you lost. You lost the debate. So, in that spirit, let's learn how to evangelize. And one thing I learned dealing with a lot of atheists, they'll wrench the Bible out of context. They'll claim that, I've read the Bible and it's just a book of fairy tales. It's ridiculous. And then they'll quote verses randomly out of context. And once you understand the context, you can argue with them. Famous one is, the Bible condones rape. How could you believe a book that condones rape? And the verse they'll use, or the verses they'll use, is in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28 and 29. If a man comes upon a young woman, a virgin, who is not betrothed, seizes her and lies with her, and they are discovered, the man who lay with her shall give the young woman's father 50 silver shekels, and she will be his wife, because he has violated her. He may not divorce her as long as he lives. And when you say to an atheist, well, you got to read that in context, they'll say, well, in what context is rape ever good? You're making the woman who was raped marry the guy? That's, throwing salt on an injury, on a cut. Okay, so you say, well, the context is 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago, if a woman didn't get married, the woman would die a widow, and she would starve to death. Because women didn't work 5,000 years ago. They depended on a man to take care of them. And no man 5,000 years ago in any culture would marry a woman who was not a virgin. So they had two choices: die of starvation or become a prostitute. So it was actually an act of mercy by God, saying, now you have to take care of this woman. Not only do you have to take care of her, but you got to take care of her family. Give them 50 shekels. And then you can't ever divorce that woman. You have to take care of her. And if you think God took rape lightly, then you need to read a couple verses up. And this is what they do. They don't let, the atheists will wrench a couple verses. So if you go a couple verses up to 25, Deuteronomy 22:25, and read it down to 27, says, but if it is in the open fields that a man comes upon the betrothed young woman. Now, betrothed is not a virgin. Betrothed is a married woman. Seizes her and lies with her. Only the man who lay with her shall die. Only the man who lay with her shall die. So the punishment for rape of a married woman is death. Now, he said only the man who lies with her shall die, because in the Middle East, even today, in most Middle Eastern countries, if a woman's raped, she's punished by death. They blame it on her. Even today, Muslims will blame it on her in the Middle East. So this is counterculture today in the Middle East. So imagine 5,000 years ago. In fact, at this time in Egypt, if a woman claimed she was raped, there was no punishment to the man she claimed raped her, but they would throw the woman in a river that was impossible to swim in, that 100% of the time the women drowned, and said, well, if the woman is guilty, she'll drown to death. If she's innocent, she'll live. That was how they decided justice in Egypt. So this was pretty enlightening, pretty liberal, pretty merciful for that time. So we're talking 5,000 years ago. And let me finish. You shall do nothing to the young woman, since the young woman is not guilty of capital offense. As when a man rises up against his neighbors and murders him, so in this case. It was in the open fields that he came upon her, and though the betrothed young woman may have cried out, there was no one to save her. So even if no one heard her, you have to take that young woman's. So that was the Me Too movement 5,000 years ago. Because even in today, you know, there has to be like 2 or 3 witnesses in the Middle East, like 3 male witnesses, you know, totally against the woman. Here, the instructions by God were, even if no one heard her, if she was in an open field and there was no one around to hear her scream, you take her word for it. So actually, this verse proves how good God is. It proves the mercy of God, and it shows you logical justice in a very illogical time of history. So you can flip the script on that very easily if you know it in context. So God bless, and hope this was helpful. Bye.